Fellow grade 12s, welcome to today's show. It's Economics with Ms. Piwe, and today we are looking at the reasons and also consequences of market failures. So remember, we are still busy looking at market structures. On our previous lesson, we spent a bit of time comparing the different market structures, looking at the differences and also what's similar between them. So in this lesson, our main focus will be just understanding what are some of the reasons and the consequences of market failure. So let's get started. Okay, so like I said earlier on, we are looking at the reasons and the consequences of market failures. So we know that markets do fail for a number of reasons, and it's important for people that are studying economics to be aware of these reasons so that they can advise other people that are wanting to go into these market structures or platforms or places in terms of what could possibly go wrong and what measures do they need to put together in order to ensure that they can respond to the challenges of those markets. So let's start off with the reasons. So we know that markets can fail for many reasons. So there isn't just one reason that could cause markets to fail, but there is a number of reasons that could result in market failure. So we are going to be looking at reasons for and the consequences of market failure. And then all of this will be explained in this lesson. So by the end of this lesson, you should have a good understanding of the reasons that cause market failures. Like I said, there are many, and these include, so we're going to start off here and look at our externalities. So these are the external things that could cause market failures. So externalities are costs not included in pricing of goods or services, and consequently there is a difference between what we call private costs or private benefits and also social costs and social benefits of production. Okay, so we're looking at externalities, and we are looking at costs that are not included in the pricing of goods or services. So we've just mentioned very important concepts over here. We started off with private costs and private benefits, and also we mentioned social costs and also social benefits of production. So let us explain these concepts because they are very important in this lesson. Starting off with private costs. So what are private costs? So private cost, this is the cost of producing the good or service, which translates into the price that the consumers pay, also called internal costs. Okay, so here we are looking at the cost of producing a good or a service, which will then translate into the price or the prices that consumers pay. So we call those private costs. Also, in this explanation, I did mention private benefits as well over here. So I did make mention of that. So what are private benefits? Because now we've looked at what private costs are. So private benefits, these are internal benefits that accrue to those who produce goods and buy these goods. For example, producing a bicycle, that would be for the producer, and using the bicycle, that would be the consumer. So you are looking at the benefits, okay? So the consumer will benefit from manufacturing the product or providing the service, and then the consumer will benefit from using the service. So we call those private benefits, and they happen between the producer and also the consumer. So now moving on to the social costs, because those are going to be important when we look at infrastructure development, when government has to make certain calls on big projects, whether to go ahead or not. So they will look at social costs as well. So these are total costs incurred by society as a whole. For example, the social cost of electricity includes the cost of capital, labor, inputs, and the cost of the externalities such as dirty water and air. So social cost equal private benefits plus the external costs. Okay, so we as society, we incur these costs, and hence we call them the social costs, because if you're looking at the social environment, you are looking at society. So we as a society end up incurring these costs. For example, when electricity is produced, we're looking at the cost of capital, the financial resources and the resources that are needed in order to enable that action to happen, labor and other inputs. And also we're looking at the cost of the externalities in the process, such as dirty water and air. And then we know that social costs equal private costs plus the external costs. Okay, so those are the social costs. And now we are going to move on to social benefits. Okay, so what are social benefits? So this includes the total benefit experienced by society as a whole. For example, municipalities provide clean water to society, which results in fewer illnesses because we all have access to clean water. And then so social benefits equal to your private benefits plus your external benefits. So here we benefit as society because we do need water. According to Maslow, when we look at the hierarchy of needs, we know that access, you've got your basic needs, and water is included in that because we need access to clean water in order to survive. So we do benefit by the fact that the municipality will provide us with clean water. In doing so, this will result in fewer illnesses because if our water is contaminated, that could result, in a vast majority of citizens or members of society getting ill from drinking water that is not purified. So it's important that we see the benefit of the service that is offered to us. Okay, so let's just go back quickly so that I can tie up all these benefits. So we know that we are busy looking at reasons for and the consequences of market failure. So we know that there are many reasons for market failures. And we know that there are certain things that we need to consider when we look at market failures. And such things include your private costs and benefits, and also your social costs and also social benefits. So we did look at what private costs are. So I'm just going to go over them again because moving forward in this lesson, we need to have a good understanding of what these different costs are. So we said that private costs, that's the cost of producing the good or service, which translates into the prices that consumers pay. And just know that they are also called internal costs. You remember, you can be asked this in a multiple choice question. They could ask you, private costs are also known as, then they'll give you the couple of options, and then you have to choose the correct answer from the options that you are given in that question. And then also we looked at private benefits. We said internal benefits that accrue to those who produce goods and buy these goods. That's the relationship between the producer and the consumer. So the producer will manufacture the bicycle and the consumer will enjoy using the bicycle. So there is a benefit that is seen between those two parties. And then social costs, we said these are total costs incurred by society as a whole. For example, we said the social cost of electricity includes the cost of capital, labor, and inputs, and also externalities that come there, such as dirty water and air, which is pollution, in other words, because when we are in a process or when we are trying to grow our economy using the primary sector, or we are in a process or we have a policy that encourages a lot of economic activity in the primary sector. So that is your manufacturing, your farming, your fishing, your forestry. So all those activities do contribute towards air pollution, and also they could make our water dirty because of the dumping that gets done in the process of manufacturing those natural resources. And then we said that our social cost equal to our private cost plus our external costs. Then we also looked at social benefits. We said this includes the total benefit experienced by society as a whole. For example, the municipalities provide clean water to society, which results in fewer illnesses. So our social benefits then equal to our private benefits plus our external benefits. So just understand that it's so important because later on when we look at the cost-based analysis, your CBA, it will be important that we bring in the different costs that are considered when we are looking at market failure. So the private costs and your social costs, they will play an important role when we do cost-based analysis. Okay, so we move on to our externalities. These are things like pollution, tobacco smoking, the cigarettes and alcohol abuse. Okay, so these are negative. We know that they are discouraged. Even when there's a national budget, they fall under what we call sin tax. So government will try and hike up the prices of these items in order to discourage consumers from using them, and then they will use the sin tax policy in order to do that. We know that companies that manufacture tobacco, they have to write in their packaging that smoking causes lung cancer and all that. So that is the regulation that they have to follow. And also with alcohol as well, they have to discourage people from abusing alcohol or overusing alcohol, if that's the correct term to use. So they discourage people from indulging in alcohol because of the consequences that result from that. So pollution is also something that's been discouraged, and we are encouraging businesses to look at initiatives in order to educate their communities about pollution, but also to look at their internal processes and see how they could be improved upon so that they ensure that we have a clean environment. So we mustn't get pollution from the factories, so they must try and minimize that. And that's the problem that they are having in China with all this massive production. Then their pollution has become a problem in that country. So fresh air has been compromised by all this mass production that's happening in the primary and in the secondary sector. Okay, so we're busy looking at the negatives. So we know that these costs of negative externalities are paid by society rather than by the producers. So we pay because, we are the ones that consume. So if the producer pollutes the environment, we are the ones as consumers who suffer from that. We are the ones that purchase the cigarettes. We are the ones that use the alcohol. So we pay for all these negative items that we have just mentioned. For example, Stuyvesant produces cigarettes. Many illnesses are related to smoking. So the treatment for these illnesses is paid by society, because when you pay your income tax, and that's the money that's paid to the government using SARS as the collection office, that money is used to develop infrastructure and to support the public sector, so the public hospitals, in other words. So a guy who's getting, or a lady who's getting treatment on lung cancer, and they go to a public hospital to receive their treatment, we as society are paying for that because it's our income tax that gets used in order to support and keep the public sector going, because we know that the government uses the funds that are collected from tax in order to invest back to the public infrastructure and also providing public services and public goods. So we end up paying for that as society. So hence we look at these and we want to find ways and solutions around managing these particular problems. So just be aware of that. And that also makes a nice discussion in class, because I do encourage that if you are able, or if you work together, you've got a study group, have these discussions. It's always good to get other people's perspective on issues like this, you know, in terms of that businesses are manufacturing, they are making money, but then the businesses have a counter argument saying that, hang on, if we are not making these items, then the unemployment level is going to go high, because we employ people in order to manufacture all these products that you consider to be negative. So, you know, it's quite an interesting debate, and I think you will find it fascinating just engaging with these issues. Right, then moving on, so we were looking at the negatives, now on to the positives. So the positive effects of products to third parties which are not paid for. Okay, so if you have products that you are not paying for, so now we're looking at the third parties, so we know that they are not paying for certain products, so that would be a positive thing. But I am much more interested in this point, so just make note of this. Because I have seen questions in the past being asked around the negatives more than they get asked with the positives, because there is more to discuss under the negatives than compared to the positives, which is unfortunate, but that's the nature of economics, because we have to look at the mechanisms, and the mechanisms are the ones that usually guide us as we follow through these processes. Well, before we continue any further, how about we take a short break, and I will see you right after this.